everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video I am going to be talking about 5 strategies that can help you learn faster and memorize. And though this video is not going to be like the usual videos where I usually talk about scholarship, this is because I believe telling you about scholarships, I should equally be able to tell you about how to maintain your scholarship, because in most countries, whenever they offer you scholarship to go and study, there is a minimum requirement that is expected from the student, like maintaining a certain GPA. You need to look for strategies that will help you study and then be able to continue to receive financing for your studies from the university. It wouldn't be nice that you get kicked out of a university because you're not performing well. Henceforth, based on popular demand, in this channel we'll be talking about everything education, from study plans, recommendation, thesis, how to look for a thesis proposal, everything that can help with your studies. So it is going to be a very long ride. Get ready. If you've not yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Without taking too much of your time, let's go. Alright, the first strategy to study fast and memorize is to apply the 5 minutes of productivity rule. So what is the 5 minutes of productivity rule? It simply states that before you do anything, focus on it deeply for 5 minutes. Try to put your body and mind into it for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, see if your body, if your mind feels like to continue. Let's say you want to study, you want to learn from a book. Focus on learning that material for 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes, see how you feel. Check your body. Does it feel like you should continue learning, or does it feel like you should stop? If you feel like you should continue learning, then continue learning until maybe 1-2 hours, until when you feel like you want to take a break. And it is also very important that during the 5 minutes you should avoid every distraction, most especially cell phones. It will be better for you to even put your phone in flight mode. Try to focus deeply for the 5 minutes while avoiding every distraction, and see if your body, your mind is deep into the mode of studying. Then now you can continue learning. But after 5 minutes, if you feel like you don't want to continue, it is okay. It is okay to look for another thing that might be productive, that might be worth your time, and then focus on it. You can still study by learning from YouTube. There are a lot of websites like Skillshare where you can learn, acquire knowledge from there. But don't just watch the videos. Try to take down notes. Try to use your active recall while learning. So it is important to apply the 5 minutes of productivity rule and see how you feel before you venture in learning. Second strategy on how to learn faster and memorize is to apply the Abraham Lincoln Sharpen the AXE method. What Abraham Lincoln meant here was that if you gave him 6 hours to cut down on tree, he was going to spend 4 hours sharpening the axe and then spend the other 2 hours to cut down the tree. This was to indicate the importance of preparation before doing anything. That is to say, at the level of studies, before you decide to learn anything, you have to prepare by developing your learning strategy, your method. Organize your work, your material in a way that you understand, because remember, when your material is disorganized, scattered, doesn't make sense, it will be difficult for you to understand. If you still feel like it's difficult for you to understand, try to link it. Connect it to something that you already know. For example, if you want to say that water at sea level boils at 212 Fahrenheit. You can connect it even to a friend's phone number, maybe the last 3 digits, which ends with 212. In that way, you would always remember that water boils at 212 Fahrenheit, which is equal to my friend's 3 last digits of his phone number. It sounds crazy, but you're indirectly putting yourself in a state where you can always remember those numbers. It is very important that before you start learning, you have to strategize. Draw your learning strategy. Try to draw plans that will make your material simple and easy to understand. That way, you would notice that learning will become easy. Understanding will become easier. The third strategy on how to learn faster is to look for an opportunity to immerse yourself deep into learning. Scott Young, in his book titled Ultra Learning, says that the best way to acquire skills and knowledge in a directed, intense way starts first by deciding what you want to learn. Then commit to a period of deep, focused learning that pushes you to your limits. As a student living in South Korea, let's say you want to study Korean language. What you need to do is immerse yourself, put yourself in the situation of wanting to learn Korean language by making friends who are really interested in learning Korean language. Spend more time with them, write Korean, practice speaking Korean with them. That way, you are in a position where you can learn Korean language, because they will force you to your limit by speaking to you in Korean, writing to you in Korean. The only commonality that you guys have together is Korean language. That way you will learn. In another sense, let's say you're studying engineering. Make sure you have or make friends with only people who are really interested in learning in your classroom. Those who are showing a lot of interest in studies. Spend more time with them so that they will challenge you. They will push you to your limits, and that way learning will occur. If you're not pushed to your limit, if you're not challenged, learning will not occur. So you have to put yourself in a situation where learning can actually occur. Number 4, you need to know your weaknesses. You need to know where you have problems. Let's say you are a math student and you have problem with calculus. You need to be able to identify that you have problem with calculus, and then make sure you devote more time into learning calculus. Don't go for the easier way. Don't go for easy things that you already know. Go for the difficult things. Look for a strategy to learn those things. The more you focus on those things that are difficult, that's when learning will take place. But if you just abandon it and say, this is difficult, I cannot do it, you will never learn. You have to be able to look for areas where you have weaknesses. Don't focus in areas that you already know you know them. Go for those areas that you don't understand and challenge yourself to know those things. If it means looking for help, being challenged by other students, do it. That's when learning will take place. It is very important that you focus on areas that you have a deep gap of difficulties. Focus more on them. That's when learning will take place. If you go for the easier ones, learning will never take place. Number 5 strategy is to test yourself, or do what we call in learning active recall. With active recall, it is just like you trying to recall what you had studied before. You try to get the information from your brain rather than referring yourself to your notebook. So the process of you trying to get back that information from your brain, that's when learning occurs. Active recall is a flip over of learning. Because with learning, traditional learning, we read and then try to keep the information into our brain. But with active recall, we try to get that information from our brain and then see if we can remember it. We try to recall the information. So let's say your professor asks you a question that, what did we study yesterday in class? You should be able to go back to your brain and get that information and then tell the information to the professor in detail, rather than opening your book or your notes to get that information and then giving it back to the professor. The process of you trying to get back that information from your brain, that's when learning occurs. Active recall involves taking a topic that you want to study, formulate questions, and then testing yourself by trying to answer those questions repeatedly. By forcing your brain to answer those questions that you formulated, you will be able to know if your brain is able to recall the information. By forcing your brain to retrieve that information, you will be learning actively rather than passively. And also note that with this method, it helps you to know where you have gaps. Also, it is important to note that with this method, it doesn't only help you to actively remember the information or study, it helps you to equally note where you have gaps. It helps you to understand areas that you are lacking, areas that you do not understand, and then you will be able to focus now and pay more attention to those areas. That being said, this is the end of the video. Let me know in the comments, what are your strategies to study faster and memorize? And I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.